Hi, this is Ajit, and today we're talking about how to build your persona to create a strong personal brand. Now, as an expert, as a coach, as a consultant, as somebody who helps other people, it's very important for you to have a strong personal brand because pretty much everything that you're coaching, training, and educating people on, they're kind of trusting you and associating with you to be able to connect and actually enroll with you as a client. So it's extremely important that they see you as a personality, they see your personal brand, associate with it, and they can understand you and really follow you very strongly. Which is why, first of all, it's extremely important for you to have a persona, a character that people can identify with. Now, I don't mean that you need to fragment and frame a persona that is not truly you, but it is basically you saying, how do I find those highlighted elements so that people can associate and relate with you much better, and they can kind of find them in you. Now, a lot of times what happens is we think a good persona is the perfect persona. What if you were the teacher which is the perfect teacher? And yes, it could work to a certain degree, but it doesn't really work truly if you're really building a strong, powerful, big personal brand. You see, if you look at movies, if you look at video games, the characters that people associate with most are characters that are multi-dimensional. They're not perfect, they have their own quirks, they have their own flaws, but they're always complemented with something that is even more powerful. If you look at Sherlock Holmes, he may be really smart, but he's socially awkward and a drug addict at the same point in time, but he really cares about solving every case, right? There are certain elements of Sherlock Holmes that you would always remember. If you talk about Dr. House, you talk about any character that's just caught on today or several years ago, it has always been a character that had multiple dimensions, and the multiple dimensions were not always positive dimensions. Some of them were actually negative dimensions, or dimensions that you would not necessarily think you want to expose to your audience. Here's what happens when you expose even the not so positive or negative dimensions of yourself to your audience. All of a sudden, they have found a flaw in you as a personality. And when they find that flaw, they're able to create a connection with you. Because now finally they see that wherever you have been, or wherever you are going, or whatever you are as a person, they could associate and they can find their own story within your story, within your personality, right? Which is why, first, to have a persona is important. Secondly, to know what those elements of persona are, so you can actually make sure that they are highlighted every time you're having a conversation with someone, or creating a video, creating content, creating a social media post, because now it gives people that variety and gives people that ability to find those connection points consistently. Now, as human being, you are multidimensional already, but it's hard if you have 200 different dimensions for somebody to be able to follow you, because they kind of get confused and say this person is too confusing, instead of associating with 3 or 4 key elements that really help them identify themselves with you, right? So here is how you really build a persona for you to have a strong character in front of your audience. Step 1 is to be able to highlight or outline all the things that you say, your friends say, or your clients say are really, really good about you. For example, it could be that you are really a very honest person. It could be because you are really smart. It could be because you are really emotionally intuitive or very emotionally available. These could be the positives that you have all the time. Whereas the negatives could be that, for example, you could be a really straight up person and can be harsh sometimes. It could be that you go into a seclusive environment. You are an introvert, so you kind of step away and make people feel weird or awkward around you while you are at a party or something like that. Both list those things down, the positives and the negatives. And what you want to do once you've listed both of them down is start to segment things that are similar to each other. So if you are funny and playful, you say just playful. So because these are qualities and areas that we can work on, usually we sometimes tend to write them in multiple words. Club them together, okay? So step 1, write all the things that are there, positive, things that are negative, that people talk about you or people have given you as feedback or you know about yourself. Second is club them together So there are less items on each side of positives and negatives. And then find the polar opposites. So if you are a genius, but at the same point in time you're socially awkward or don't care about people, that is kind of counterintuitive, because if you're so smart, you should be socially okay as well, but you're not. So it makes you a polar personality, and that gives you polarity in your audience, and people can find that association. The more polar the things are, usually it's easier for people to be able to identify, because the flaw is a lot more evident in the whole structure of you seeing anybody else as a personality, right? Because if somebody is a genius and somebody is also socially awkward, it's very easy to identify both the polarities, because you can really highlight them in your conversation, in your videos, in your coaching, in whatever reality, in your stories. All of them is much more easier to identify. But find as polar as you can possibly get to be able to create that clear identification for your audience to understand your character really, really well. So, circling it all back, step one is to know why you need a persona, which we already established. Then go in and find elements of your persona, so you can kind of put what's the positive, what's the negatives, and all of those dimensions are put in there. And lastly is to be able to find the polarity of these personas and polarities of your characters that you have inbuilt in you as a person, and be able to really position them when you're creating the next video, the next training, the next coaching session, the next consulting thing, so your audience can clearly identify with you and know what is your personality, and be able to identify you as a character and be able to follow you as a character with your positives and your negatives, and find greater association with you.